Hello and welcome back to the Commander Crucible. Today I'm joined by a good friend of mine, Randy.
Hi!
Before we get into this video more, Kykar was spoiled and covered on an episode of the Command Zone. So there'll be a link to that in the video description below, so be sure to check that out. We're not trying to rip off the Command Zone and do essentially what they did in their initial breakdown of Kykar, but we're attempting to elaborate further on the deck and strategies that we think that Kykar would best lead in an EDH deck. So check the link in the description below for the Command Zones video. But thanks for listening. And today we prepared our own versions and styles of decks that we think that Kykar at the helm of would just really take off. So first, why don't we just go through and we'll just read Kykar and we'll go through the ups and downs that he presents initially. So Kykar Wind's Fury is 1 blue, red, white, flying, 3/3. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying, and sacrifice a spirit and add 1 red mana to your mana pool. So when I initially read this, just Jeskai, Spell Slinger, all those things, like Young Pyromancer, Talrand, Monastery Mentor, those are like the 3 main token generators in Jeskai, and I finally think that Jeskai has a commander that almost like casuals can then wing to, whereas before it was just Narset, or you had what's the elephant, the Ruhan and Numot. So Jeskai was in a really weird space of either super good Narset or casual janky Numot land destruction,
Yeah, when I first saw this card, I never really played Jeskai, but I saw it and I was like, tokens, that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And you get mana if you sacrifice the spirits, that's also pretty cool.
We've seen cool stuff with Urza, like Urza tapping artifacts to make colored mana. If Urza just tapped to make colorless mana, it would be a whole different story, but creating colored mana on your commander is insane.
Yeah, even though it's red. I mean, it would be more powerful, honestly, if it were blue or something, but still, you're right, colored mana is far better than colorless.
Mm-hmm. I also think, like you said, if he sacrificed a spirit to make, Jeskai, if he could make red, blue, or white mana by sacrificing a spirit, Kykar would just be way more crazy, and I think that him giving you the red mana just kind of pushes the deck in a situation where it's saying, hey, I'm going to reward you for playing more red spells. So that way, I feel like Kykar is almost saying, build that more casual deck, build that more janky deck, instead of, hey, I'm a combo enabler. Boom, here you go. Here's all the blue mana you ever need. So another thing that I really love about Kykar is just looking at him. He creates these 1/1 white spirits with flying, and sure, it's a 1/1, but you can have those 1/1s enter a blocking phase with a creature that's attacking you and then sacrifice it for the red mana. Maybe not to cast something right away, but you could. So you have red instants, you can enter blocking with the 1/1. Those 2 creatures enter that blocking phase so that creature won't deal damage to you. Then you can sacrifice the creature and still get the red mana for it without it just dying. And Kykar's just rewarding you for playing the game. You don't even have to cast certain spells to get those spirits. You just need to cast non-creature spells, which in Magic is insanely easy, and especially in a deck that it's just like a control deck, like the Talrands. You could just run a bunch of counter magic and control magic, and you're still getting your creature base.
Yeah, I think that opens up this card a lot. I do see this card's competitive potential, for those players who want to play that kind of magic. But I think since it's just any non-creature spell, it offers you a lot of avenues you can go. I know the Command Zone touched on a couple different strategies, but looking at styles like Planeswalkers, you can cast a Planeswalker, an enchantment, an artifact, instant sorcery. Any kind of card that's not a creature, and you're just going to get tokens for it. So, just like you said, you're going to be rewarded for playing counter spells. You're going to be rewarded for playing your mana rocks. You're going to be rewarded for playing basically any kind of non-creature spell, which I think is where we're going to touch on a couple different strategies here that will synergize with Kykar and allow you to take advantage of making those tokens for mana and for whatever purpose you'd use them for.
Well, you said the command zone touched on a few, the competitive side of Kykar, where he is making that colored mana in like a storm deck, which they touched on in the command zone, Josh and DJ did. And also Kykar planeswalkers. I remember Josh Lee Kwai saying that the best planeswalkers often come in and make a protector for themselves so that way they can stay alive till the next turn. And with Kykar, you're doing that. You cast Jace the Mind Sculptor, you have a 1/1 blocker to protect him. You're probably not going to get that ultimate anytime soon, but you cast any planeswalker, any good planeswalker that doesn't have protection as they're not supposed to have protection because they're very good. Kykar then gives you a 1/1 blocker for that planeswalker if that's the only thing you cast. So,
right.
Very, very good. But
yes.
When I look at Kykar, we should probably try and figure out a downside to Kykar. And when I look at him, there's not really a huge downside other than the fact that he discourages playing creature spells. But he makes creatures, so you don't really need a lot of creature spells unless you don't want your deck to be completely centered around Kykar. That's then saying that you need Kykar out all the time for your deck to do anything, which we obviously know in EDH that's not a very good play style to go if you just build this really light switchy deck where if your opponents figure out, hey, if I just take Kykar or I just keep killing Kykar, this guy's just going to not even play his spells. He's going to hold everything because he wants those 1/1 spirits.
Yeah, exactly. And that's always tough to do because you see commanders and like, I really want to play all the cards I can that really synergize with them. But it's easy to not leave yourself any room within the deck for the deck to actually operate by itself. You get commanders like Talia and Narset, where if you don't have them play, your deck isn't really doing much at all.
Right.
Those can be incredibly boring games. I'm the kind of player that loves to diddle around a lot and just create all these weird little interactions around either generating some kind of value or just doing something bizarre. The whole reason why we play EDH is to do those cool little things with cards that don't regularly see play. And it's really important not to build so heavily on it that that falls apart when you can't play it. Because then you end up getting the position where you're trying to make people feel guilty for killing your commander, and then you win, and then they're like, oh, it's only because they're letting your commander resolve, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
So I see where you're going with that, and the deck tech that I'm bringing to the table today is definitely going to have a couple ways around that. So
well, then with that being said, why don't we get into it? And again, another disclaimer, these aren't full 99 card decks with Kykar at the forefront. These are merely suggestions for things that we think Kykar would be good to lead. So these are just a few cards that we want to present to you that Kykar could synergize well with other cards from you, the listener, who is going to build around Kykar more heavily. So my take on a deck that would fit well around Kykar would be Spirits. And I wanted to go this route for a more flavorful area in Kykar's ability with sacrificing a spirit. It's not necessarily spirit tokens or 1/1 spirits. He can sacrifice any spirit to make that red mana. And it seems like you could break this ability in a couple different ways. So to start, I just want to bring up some legendary spirits. I love doing this in all of my decks. The first things I look at are the legendary creatures because legendary creatures are awesome and super powerful. So right away, we see the Celestial Kirin, the Cloudhoof Kirin, and the Skyfire Kirin. So those are the Jeskai Kirins from the Kamigawa block. The white one, the Celestial, just says whenever you play a spirit or arcane spell, you can destroy all permanents with that spell's converted mana cost. this one might not be one that you run very, or you play very at the forefront, but it could offer some good control. The Cloudhoof Kieran, whenever you play a Spirit or Arcane spell, you may put the top X cards of target player's library into their graveyard, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. And the Skyfire Kieran, whenever you play a Spirit or Arcane spell, you may gain control of target creature with that spell's converted mana cost until end of turn. Now, all these are, the white one and the red one are 4 mana, 3/3s, and the blue one is a 5 mana, 4/4. So again, they're not. I don't know if these cards are going to be just bombshells in this deck. There are quite a few spirits on our list that could really help sing this deck along, but these are also just good legendary spirits that I thought really fit well in Kykar if you are getting to a point where you're playing a lot of your spirits.
Jared, I actually had a couple questions regarding Kieran.
Yes.
So I see the red Kieran being a lot more powerful than the other two, simply because it has the ability to gain control of a creature. The spell's converted mana cost is pretty strong. However, it doesn't look like it says that it gives that creature haste.
Right.
So I like that ability, but then again, I'm looking at the Celestial Kieran, and it looks like that might also hurt your board.
Right. And
well, do you have any ways around these abilities?
I have some other like spirity kind of tech further on, but right now it's just these legendaries that I wanted to cover. And I know that the Celestial Kieran, where it says you destroy all permanents with that spell's converted mana cost, which would really hurt. You play. Well, I don't think there's a 0-drop spirit, but if you did, you destroy all lands. But oftentimes board wipes aren't one-sided, like Blasphemous Acts, Wrath of God, Damnation. Those are going to hurt your things too. And sometimes I think in a life or death situation where you're going to die, if you don't just wipe the board, you're going to have to give up some permanents.
Right, so I suppose what you're saying is when this is on the board, you can kind of choose when to play the spirits to destroy the permanents and when not to.
Right, and I also think that I would probably hold the Celestial Kieran behind a little bit. So I would hold the Celestial Kieran in my hand before actually just playing it outright, because then it says whenever you play. So it doesn't say that you may. Whenever you play a spirit, you're going to have to. So it's almost like this is almost a spirit tribal board wipe, and I just included it in this deck, A, because it was legendary, and B, it's a spirit. So I just thought it was cool with Kykar.
I do like it. I like it a lot. I have a cool little suggestion that you could with Skyfire Kieran, there's a card that I'm actually going to cover later on in my deck, but Arcane Adaptation.
Yes.
We've a 3-mana enchantment that when you play it, choose a creature type, and then all creatures you control of that type. Now, you play the Skyfire Kieran, and then you play Spirit and gain control of target creature. You can actually sacrifice it to Kykar before it goes back to its opponent, because it's also going to be a spirit in addition to its other types. It's a little jank, but I think it's a cool little interaction.
That's what we're here for, is this janky plays. I like it. I like that suggestion. And we've often entertained the thought of the Arcane Adaptation in decks like Inala, and then just filling it with non-wizards and tutoring up Arcane Adaptation every time to make everything a wizard. But yeah, I enjoy Arcane Adaptation. And in this deck, you're playing spirits, and then that's like the point of making everything else a spirit as well. So you might not necessarily need it, but it's just a cool little tech that you can run.
Agreed.
So to finish off my legendary creatures real quick, there's Iobi, Spirit, who split the heavens. He's really high mana cost. He's 6 and a white. So whenever you play a Spirit or Arcane, you put a 3/3 Spirit into play, which will be great for Kykar to sacrifice, and it's a bigger body than the tokens that he creates. And everyone's favorite Mr. Blink, Brago, King Eternal, is a spirit as well, and I'm sure most of you know what Brago does, and Randy, you have firsthand experience of Mr. Lockdown.
I hate Brago with a burning passion, but continue.
Most people do. So Brago's pretty self-explanatory. It'll be up on the screen. And something that I didn't even know, but the dragons I think they're from the original print was in Kamigawa. They're all spirits as well. So we have Yosei, Kaiga, and Ryusei Uh, Yosei is going to, when it dies, target player skips their next untap step, and then you tap up to 5 target permanents that player controls. Kaiga, when it dies, gain control of target creature. And Ryusei, when it dies, it's going to deal 5 damage to each creature without flying. Now, Kykar is going to make us flying tokens, and these are spirits, so let's say if someone does something to you, you don't need them to block this creature, or you don't need to use like a kill spell or something like that on your own things. You can merely just sacrifice them to Kykar to get those abilities, and I think those on their own are pretty powerful, but now with Kykar and you get to sacrifice them whenever you want is very, very, very powerful.
I agree. Having that instant speed sacrifice outlet for the dragon spirits, it's insanely powerful compared to playing those dragons in any other kind of deck where you just kind of have to wait for a board wipe. I agree 100%.
Mm-hmm. And the last legendary creature we have is Kira, the Great Glass Spinner. She has flying. She's 3 mana, 1 blue. Creatures you control have whenever this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability for the first time each turn. Counter that spell or ability. I'm not sure if you'd want to run it in Kykar like very heavily or at the forefront, because I know that Kira will also counter your own spells and your own abilities. So you just have to really be careful with this card. I've seen it played on an episode of Game Nights where someone played Kira. I don't remember, but someone played Kira and they had to be careful because they wanted to equip Kira with or they wanted to equip a creature with an equipment, and they couldn't because it was becoming the target of a spell or ability. It was something like that where they had to play around their own Kira the Great Glass Spinner. So just really be careful with this card. It was just a legendary spirit. It's a little bit of control, protects you a little bit. So other spirits in this deck, I'm going to be careful. I'm only going to read the ones that really give good abilities. I don't know if I want to read every single spirit. I have quite a bit here. They'll be up on the screen for your viewing pleasure. But the new spirit that we got is Ugin's Conjurant, an X mana 0/0 spirit, which just enters with X/1/1 counters. And if damage would be dealt to this creature while it has a 1/1 counter on it, prevent that damage and remove that many 1/1 counters. It's an uncommon from War of the Spark. I just thought it was a cool colorless spirit to throw in this deck. You can sacrifice your other spirits to pump this one to make it just huge. Thought it was kind of cool. You have the Supreme Phantom, a Spirit Lord. Other spirits you control get 1/1. Cards like Rattle Chains. And another little Jeskai spirit cycle was the Nico Ona, Yuki Ona, and Kiri Ona. And they all have enter the battlefield triggers, and then when you play a spirit or arcane spell, you can return them to your hand. So the white one, Nico, says whenever this card comes into play, destroy target enchantment. The red one, Yuki, whenever this comes into play, destroy target artifact. And Kiri says whenever this comes into play, return target creature to its owner's hand. The white one is 3 mana, red one is 4 mana, and the blue one is 5 mana. They get a little bit steeper as they go up, but I think you need a bit of control. Destroying an enchantment, destroying an artifact, and then returning creatures is just a good amount of control. You're probably going to want to run control spells in this deck, like Cyclonic Rift and stuff like that. But I think these are just they're spirits that you can sacrifice if you don't need, and a little bit of artifact control, a little bit of enchantment control, creature control is always a good thing to have. There is the Selfless Spirit. Sacrifice this, and creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn.
Prevention for board wipes right there.
Oh yeah, I've seen this card. I've seen Selfless Spirit run in many other decks, and it's just a spirit, so it just synergizes well with Kykar in our build right now. The Drogue Skull Captain. Other spirits get 1/1 and hexproof, so that'll be great to protect your board. The Remorseful Cleric. Sacrifice Remorseful Cleric and exile all cards from target player's graveyard. Again, this is a card that you'll probably not want to sacrifice to get mana from Kykar, but every deck should probably have a little bit of graveyard hate, and usually the cards that graveyard hate, well, we have Rest in Peace in white, but then it's mostly black, so I just thought of throwing in a white piece of graveyard hate that's also attached to a spirit is pretty flavorful. Sire of the Storm. Whenever you play a spirit or arcane spell, draw a card. Karmic Guide, bring your stuff back. The Drogue Skull Cavalry. Whenever another spirit enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 2 life, and pay 3 colorless, 1 white, and put a 1/1 spirit creature token with flying onto the battlefield. Now this one's really steep. He's 5 white, but whenever a spirit enters the battlefield, so you're going to get that trigger on Kykar's tokens that he's creating. So I just thought that was really cool. A little piece of life gain right there. You have Mausoleum Wanderer, the Windborn Muse. I don't even know how to pronounce this. Nebelgast Herald, Spectral Shepherd, Bygone Bishop. Whenever you cast a creature spell with converted mana cost 3 or less, investigate, so a little bit more card draw. The Kami of Ancient Law, Kami of the Crescent Moon, so each player draws an additional card at their draw step. The Drug Skull Reaver, which is a big 5 white blue 3/5 creature. It has flying, double strike, and lifelink. Whenever you gain life, draw a card. It's a little steep in the mana cost, but again, we're just building a little casual, janky, fun deck, so I think this card would really help us get back into the game with some card draw. We have cards like Tomorrow, a Zombie's Familiar, Spirit of the Hearth. This is a cat spirit that I think came in the cat precon decks. It just says flying. It's a 6 mana, 4 white, flying. You have hexproof. I would just play it for that alone. There are many times in an EDH game where some players, like a discard deck, where they're just targeting you over and over and over again, making you discard everything. And this spirit is just a great way to stop that from happening. Niblis of Frost with prowess, so it's going to reward you for playing non-creatures like what Kykar is. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, tap target creature an opponent controls, and then that creature doesn't untap on the next untap step. And 2 non-spirit creatures that I thought worked really well in this deck is Sun Titan. So whenever Sun Titan enters the battlefield or attacks, you get to bring back a card with CMC 3 or less. Most of our spirits are kind of cheap. It'll be nice, like a Selfless Spirit, sack that, block combat damage, or you gain indestructible, not combat damage. Cast Sun Titan, bring that back. Whenever Sun Titan attacks, you just keep doing that. And then Angel of Fight Alabaster. At the beginning of your upkeep, return target spirit card from your graveyard to your hand. Now this card is an angel, but just getting it's a little bit of graveyard recursion. I always love doing that as well. It's putting ways to get stuff from your graveyard back in your library or in your hand in colors that are not black, because black obviously does that the best with its reanimation spells. And so I just love finding out ways that you can get a reanimator style in a non-black deck.
Yeah, reanimation is incredibly powerful in any deck, really, because you know how EDH is singleton, you can only really play 1 card in your deck of any kind of card, but once you get the ability to start replaying that same card, you kind of regain that ability that other formats have, the consistency where you're casting the same card multiple times, which is why graveyard strategies are typically so strong. And like you said, Jeskai isn't typically a graveyard style color color combination, but once you achieve that in that color and start replaying certain cards, you can start generating a lot of value.
Oh yeah. And the last card that I have on this list would be Ugin the Ineffable, which is the War of the Spark Ugin. So colorless spells you cast cost 2 less. And his +1. Exile the top card of your library face down and look at it. Then you create a 2/2 colorless spirit creature token. When that token leaves the battlefield, put the exiled card into your hand. Now, when I first looked at Ugin for this deck, I didn't even read the -3, which is destroy target permanent that's 1 or more colors. But Ugin's +1, drawing you a card more or less, creating a 2/2 spirit that you can then sacrifice to Kykar at instant speed to then get that card into your hand. I love it. Love everything about it. But Kykar rewards us for playing our non-creature spells. So in your version of Kykar, you might want to cut out some of the creature spells that I just mentioned. But again, that's just a starting point or a jumping off point for a Kykar deck based around Spirit Tribal. But let's look at some non-creature spirit support. So you have cards like Long Forgotten, all these cards from Kamigawa. Long Forgotten Gohi. Arcane spells cost 1 less to cast, and spirits you control get +1/+1. Not exactly backbreaking, but I like the spirit +1/+1 part. Then you have the cards like Vanquisher's Banner to give more +1/+1 counters. Herald's Horn for the spells to be discounted by 1, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, you look at the top card of your library, and if it's the chosen type, you reveal it and draw it. Basically, draw 2 cards at your upkeep. Door of Destinies. Whenever you cast a spell of the chosen type, you put a charge counter, and your things get +1/+1 for how many charge counters. Urza's Incubator, obviously amazing with any tribal deck, discounting by 2. The Baku Altar. Whenever you play a spirit or arcane spell, you may put a Kai counter on Baku Altar, pay 2 mana and tap it, remove a Kai counter from Baku Altar, and put a 1/1 colorless spirit into play. Again, this card isn't really backbreaking, but just being able to create more 1/1 spirits along with Kykar, I think is really powerful. You have cards like Kindred Discovery, so you're going to name spirits. Whenever a creature you control of the chosen type enters the battlefield or attacks, draw a card. So again, you're getting card draw off of the spirits that Kykar is just creating. They're just entering, and that's why cards like Kindred Discovery are really good in the Locust God. Those Locust tokens that you name as your creature type, they just enter and you draw a card. So we're not going to go infinite like the Locust God, but we're going to get really good value from that. Field of Souls. Whenever a non-token creature is put into your graveyard, put a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying onto the battlefield. So Field of Souls will just say, hey, if you're going to kill my spirits, I'm just going to keep making more spirits to sacrifice to Kykar, to block, to whatever. And a card that I actually forgot about that even existed until this point was Anointed Procession. 3 and a white. If an effect would create 1 or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many of those tokens instead. So, you cast a Planeswalker, now you have 2 1/1 blockers.
Blockers are important in every deck, and most spirits have flying. Flying blockers are important in every deck.
Oh, yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've been playing a control matchup, and I'm just tutoring up ways to make flying blockers, whether it's Bitter Blossom or Talrand. It's really quite powerful. And there's often times when I'm playing my Amara tokens deck where I'm sitting there freaking, hey, I wish these creatures had flying.
Right. And that's why cards like, what's the blue archetype that just says no one else gets flying except your team, and that card just ends games.
Yeah, I think that one's called the Archetype of Imagination.
Imagination, I think
That's
you're right.
Ultimate evasion right there.
Mm-hmm. So to cap off my section of the deck tech, I'm actually going to leave a few of the cards that I have written down here because Randy, his deck list is built more around these cards that I just have as good stuff, and they're more central to his idea for Kykar, so I'm going to leave those for him. But cards that I just wanted to bring up are Gutter Snipe, Taigem Ojutai Master, and finally, Soulfire Grandmaster. A 2 mana, 1 and a white, lifelink, instants and sorceries you control have lifelink. 2, Is It, the hybrid mana. The next time you cast an instant or sorcery spell from your hand, this turn, put that card into your hand instead of into your graveyard as it resolves. I don't really think I need to go much further into Soulfire Grandmaster. Everyone knows it, everyone loves it. Put it in this deck, it's going to be an all-star. A card that I think is going to be awesome in this deck as well is Noyan Dar, Royal Shaper. I wish Noyan was built a little differently. I wish he was constructed at R&D differently. He's 3 Azorus, so he's 3 white-blue for a 4/4 Merfolk ally. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you're going to animate a land. You put 3 1/1 counters on a land, and it gets haste, but it's still a land. I think he could shine in this deck where, again, you're just wanting to create stuff by casting your non-creature spells. This is only instants and sorceries, but I used to have a Noyan Dar list, and it was really hard to get him out reliably and then protect him reliably. He's just a lot of mana, so maybe in this deck where he's not the main focus of the deck, he can just be like a little secret commander. He'll just be a good legendary creature to throw in there. Smothering Tithe, obviously. I just wanted to talk about Smothering Tithe.
So good. So good.
Smothering Tithe. This is just for anyone out there who thinks Smothering Tithe is bad or they shouldn't put Smothering Tithe in a deck. If your deck is white, Smothering Tithe should be in it. The Command Zone talked about Jeskai Ascendancy and how you can tune that and break that with Kykar, so I'm not going to go over that a whole lot. I would put it in this deck. Now I'm going to talk about some Tribal Spirit instant sorcery cards. There's only a few of them. Aether Shockwave. Choose one. Tap all spirits or tap all non-spirit creatures. It's an instant. There's your window right there. You need to swing in for damage. You're going to tap all non-spirit creatures and just blow someone up. Love it. Blessed Breath. Target creature you control gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. It has Splice into Arcane. I don't know if you really want to go into the Splice into Arcane, the Arcane instants and sorceries that came out of Kamigawa as well. But I just thought they were kind of cool because they interact with a little bit of our spirits here. Spiritual Visit. Put a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token into play. It has Splice into Arcane on it. Ribbons of the Jeskai. Draw a card for each spirit you control. This one is an arcane sorcery. It doesn't have Splice into Arcane on it, but for 5 mana, it's 4 and a blue. Draw a card for each spirit you control. That just refills your hand. You could just draw half your deck with the amount of tokens you're creating with Kykar. And the last card I want to touch on is Spirit Bonds. It's an enchantment. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1 white mana. And if you do, put a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying onto the battlefield. And it also has pay 1 and a white, sacrifice a spirit, target non-spirit creature gains indestructible until end of turn. I don't know if I really need to say more about that card. It's awesome. It's doing what Kykar does. It's a little bit more tricky, but then it has that ability to give a non-spirit creature indestructible, so there's your protection for Kykar. So that pretty much does it for my Spirit Arcane theme that I was going for when building around Kykar. And I strongly recommend filling in the gaps, and you just build with your own version, your own good stuff, counterspells, removal, whatever you might run in your Jeskai colors. So now I'm going to turn it over to Randy, and he's going to give his ideas around Kykar.
Alright, so I just researched. My deck type's a little smaller. When I was appreciating this commander and how many avenues you had for him, I was like, you know what? There's probably so many different cards you could run. I was building a deck this weekend, and I ended up having like 75 cards on my list for him. And my typical ratio is 64 spells, 36 lands, and you just run into that problem where you have all these cards and you can't fit them all in there. So I'm going to be a little smaller. Started off with analyzing Kykar's ability. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 spirit that you can sack. My strategy is all about creatures with flying and buffing those creatures and just making sure that every creature you control has flying. And then playing kind of like small anthem effects and small cards that allow you to generate more flyers. But the unique thing about this build is that when you're casting these cards that are going to be enhancing your flyers, more often than not, they're going to be triggering Kykar to make more flyers. So we'll start off with some cards that are going to directly synergize with Kykar's token ability. I've got Anointed Procession. So this is an enchantment similar to Parallel Lives and Doubling Season, but in white, that doubles the amount of tokens you create. So every time you cast a creature spell, you get 2 1/1 flying spirit tokens. This card is pretty crucial to the deck strategy. You want to amplify the amount of tokens you're making. It's going to double the amount of red mana you can make. It's going to double the amount of creatures you can block. Anointed Procession also is going to trigger Kykar when you cast it. So it's kind of a double that, or you get 2 for the price of 1, I guess is what you could say. Unfortunately, you only make 1 token when you cast it, but every other non-creature spell you cast after that will make 2. Moving forward, I've got some cards in here that are also enchantments. I've got Divine Visitation. So if 1 or more creature tokens would be created under your control, create that many 4/4 white angel creature tokens with flying and vigilance instead. This is also superb in this deck. Every time you cast a non-creature spell, I'll create a 4/4 flying white angel creature token with vigilance. That is so strong.
And what you were talking about earlier with Arcane Adaptation, so I know that this card will make 4/4 angels instead of 4/4 spirits, but that shouldn't discourage you from running it in your Kykar deck. I know that you won't get to sacrifice them for red mana, but just imagine you cast that counterspell, and comes with it is a free 4/4 flyer, is really good value.
Oh, absolutely. And beautiful thing about Kykar is you're in white, so you have so many ways to tutor up enchantments. You missed out on some of the green, or I think there was one green enchantment on it called Sterling Grove that allows you to tutor up an enchantment, but you still have access to cards like Enlightened Tutor and Idyllic Tutor that allow you to search for enchantments. This is going to let you go find Divine Visitation, Anointed Procession, and one of the all-star cards in the deck, Arcane Adaptation. This card is situational, so you honestly only ever want to be grabbing it when you see that it's going to it's going to positively benefit the board. But it's definitely a great include in this deck because a lot of the creatures that I'm going to be talking about are not spirits, and Arcane Adaptation immediately transforms your deck into every creature you have is able to make a red mana. Which is going to apply to a couple other cards I have in here, but not quite yet. Moving forward, I have another card in here that allows you to make tokens called Devout Invocation. I rarely see this card played, and I'm not sure why. This card's very, very strong, especially in any kind of deck that has lots of creatures in it. It's 7 mana, white, tap any number of untapped creatures you control. Put a 4/4 white angel creature token flying onto the battlefield for each creature tapped this way. To start it right off, you're probably going to have a lot of spirit tokens playing Kykar. Well, at least I would hope you would. This is kind of an end game card to play. One of your more powerful spells. It's sorcery, so it's going to make you a spirit. And as you're casting it, you tap as many creatures as you can to generate that many 4/4 angels that will come into play tapped. They come into play untapped. So you're not even sacrificing blockers for this. Very, very powerful card. 7 mana, make upwards of 5, 7 4/4 angels. It's going to make you a spirit token when you cast it. You see this as an absolute win. Very powerful, very, very powerful card there. Keep going though. We have some more enchantment support here. Gravitational Shift. This card is very powerful. It's at 5 mana. Creatures you control flying get +2/+0. Creatures without flying get -0. This adds a lot of strength to your board as mainly every creature you're going to have in play has flying. Whereas I anticipate most of the creatures your opponents control will not have flying. If they do have flying, you might not want to cast this card until they're removed or until you're in a better position to where it's benefiting you more. However, if you're playing against a deck that doesn't have a lot of flyers, this card is going to add a lot of power to your board and strip a lot of power from your opponent's board, making it easier to swing in and deal damage without fearing massive repercussion. That card will also generate you a token when you cast it, ironically. Moving forward, you have a card called Favorable Winds, much cheaper. Creatures you control flying get +1/+1 for 2 mana. This card will also trigger Kykar, making another token. So it turns out your 1/1s and the 2/2s. It's very powerful. You cover a card called Supreme Phantom. It's a flyer that gives no spirits 1/1. You could go in this deck as well since it's a flyer and it buffs 2 tokens. Arcane Adaptation would allow it to buff all your creatures, which would be very powerful. But moving forward, I got a card here called Sprite Noble. This is a little bit weaker, and it's also a creature card, so this one will not trigger Kykar. But I did find it quite interesting. 3 mana, other creatures with flying, you control with flying at +0/+1. So it grants a little bit more toughness there for your creatures, and then you can tap it to give other creatures you control flying with +1/+0 till end of turn. It gives power if you tap it, and it gives toughness by itself statically. It's a deck. It's a card you could run. It's a card you're not going to miss if you don't run it. But I think playing these smaller beneficial cards can be better for you in the long long run, because when you're playing bombshell cards like Toxic Great Sphinx, Paradox Engine, they're immediately like, "Oh, kill that card right away." Whereas cards like this are like, "Oh, I don't really care about that," but then you're getting the value out of it, and they're not looking at it on the board as a threat, which, in my opinion, is something that is far more valuable in the long run. I got another I got another flying word here called Thunderclap Wyvern. 4 mana, flying and flash, which is actually pretty powerful. Other creatures you control flying get +1/+1. So this one can lead to surprise damage, which is also very nice, and it can also, you can trick your opponents into blocking on things they think they're going to trade with, or not if they have flyers. Flash is very powerful. You just wait till the last minute to play it on a board where maybe someone saw you had like 5/1/1s, and then you on their end step cast this, and all of a sudden you have 5 2/2s, which is going from 5 power to 10 power, and then you can swing in for what wouldn't have been lethal before, but is now lethal potentially. It's always a good card to have. I covered a spirit. I'm not sure if you mentioned this one, Jared, called the Twilight Drover. 3 mana, 2 colorless, and a white. Whenever a creature token leaves the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Twilight Drover. This is a spirit, by the way. And it has an activated ability, pay 2 and a white, remove a 1/1 counter from it. Put 2 1/1 white spirit creature tokens flying onto the battlefield. I feel like no matter what deck you're running, what style of Kykar you're running, this card is an absolute staple. Whenever you sacrifice token, get a 1/1 counter on this, and then pay 3 mana to remove a 1/1 counter from it to put 2 1/1 spirit tokens with flying onto the battlefield. This card can go infinite with Phyrexian Arena and Parallelizing Kykar. It's a little bit of setup. You've got 3 cards there. It's a 3-card combo. But you got Paralyze, I'm sorry, not Paralyze, what am I thinking? Anoint of Procession. You sacrifice Spirit that puts a 1/1 counter on the Twilight Drover. You pay the 3. You remove a 1/1 counter from them. You get 4 1/1 white Spirit tokens. You sacrifice them, 3 of them, to the Phyrexian altar. And then you get 3 white mana, putting 3 1/1 counters on the Twilight Drover. Then you activate the ability again, having 1 white mana left over every time, giving you infinite color mana of any choice that you want, honestly. You're going to need that, at least one of those to be white every time you make it, but hence, this is a little bit more of a casual infinite, but it generates you infinite mana, and you could make infinite tokens, honestly, and make an infinitely powerful Twilight Drover. Very, very Timmy combo right there, as some would call it. Alpha investments. Moving forward, I've got another creature called the Geist Honored Monk. Its power and toughness will be equal to the number of creatures you control, and when it enters the battlefield, you get 2 1/1 white spirit tokens for flying. This creature is not a flyer, but it makes flyers, and you're going to need as many of those as you can get. Hopefully, you're playing that with Anoint Procession out, you get more than just 2. Another card I covered here is it's a quadruple feature. It's Monastery Mentor, Talran Sky Summoner, Murmuring Mystic, and Young Pyromancer. So these 4 cards, every time you play an instant sorcery, you're gaining another token. Talran and Murmuring Mystic are making flyers. Young Pyromancer and Monastery Mentor are not. And Monastery Mentor will trigger on any non-creature spell rather than just instants or sorceries.
And Monastery Mentor also has prowess, and the tokens that you create also have prowess. So whenever I think prowess is instant and sorcery, so whenever you cast those creatures get buffed by +1/+1 for...
Actually, prowess is any non-creature spell.
Even better. That's exactly what Kykar wants. So you make a bunch of prowess monks, cast a bunch of non-creature spells. Now your 1/1 monks are 5/5s, and you're creating more of them all the time, along with the spirits, along with Tolerance Drakes, along with Young Pyromancer's Elementals, and then if you have Anointed Procession out, this part of the deck that just sings.
It starts generating lots of value very quickly. Arcane Adaptation. All of these tokens you're generating make red mana. Phyrexian Altar. They don't have to be spirits. They make mana by themselves. Let's not forget that casting Phyrexian Altar makes you a 1/1 with Kykar's ability, but that's not important, right? I'm just kidding. I've got a couple other cool cards on here that are going to synergize with those guys if you choose to run that package. Would recommend playing. I looked at Levitation for a little bit. It's a 4-mana enchantment. It says creatures with flying. This card seems kind of depends on how you build your deck. A lot of creatures you don't, or the tokens you're making don't have flying to begin with. You'll want this card, but there's another card I found that works better and isn't just going to get flying. It's the same mana cost called Concerted Effort for 4 mana. It's a white enchantment. Beginning of each player's upkeep, all creatures you control gain flying until end of turn if a creature you control has flying. The same is true for Fear, First Strike, Double Strike, Landwalk, Protection, Trample, and Vigilance. Now, this card is, in my opinion, better than Levitation because it is going to grant flying as long as you have Kykar in play, or any other creature you control with flying, which you should because you're playing lots of flyers. It's going to give cards like Talran and Young Pyromancer and Monastery Mentor flying right off the bat, but it's better than Levitation because it's going to also grant protection or double strike, trample, or vigilance. What other abilities? You might have those angels with vigilance play, so that it'll also grant vigilance there. You might have some equipments you want to run in this deck, like swords. I'm a huge fan of the swords. Sword Fire and Ice is my personal favorite to make these creatures potentially unblockable. Or I'm going to cover actually a cool little combo here with this card in a little bit, but yeah, it's just strictly better than Levitation in my personal opinion, just because at the beginning of each player's upkeep, you're granting flying to everything. So it's not just during your turn. Your things are all going to have flying, and then plus any other abilities that any of these creatures might also have. Moving forward, I have another card here that grants flying to all creatures. More importantly, it grants Indestructible Eldrazi Monument for 5 mana. Creatures you control get +1/+1 and have flying and Indestructible. And at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature, and if you can't, sacrifice Eldrazi Monument. This card's mainly in here for the Indestructible. It's kind of nice that it grants flying in case some of the creatures you're playing don't have flying, and that +1/+1 is always good. And with the amount of non-creature spells you should be casting, you should have plenty of creatures to keep Eldrazi Monument around when you cast it. Just a little pro tip, don't play this card if you don't have creatures to sacrifice, because it's probably going to end up killing itself. But I have another small package in here of cards. Because you're generating red mana with Kykar, I looked at a couple X red mana cards that could go really well in this deck. Let's start off with Magma Quake. Magma Quake reads red X instant. It deals X damage to each creature without flying and each planeswalker. Your deck is all flying, so this is at its best one-sided board wipe for you. And it's going to deal damage to every planeswalker in play. Now, hopefully you're not playing this when you have a planeswalker out. You could be running planeswalkers in your build of Kykar. But, let's say you have all these flyers and everyone else has a fat board state and you just want to wipe the board. You could use your lands and then sack a couple flyers to amplify that X and wipe the entire board of your opponent's creatures and then swing it after that with all your creatures who weren't even touched by it. I've got a couple other cards that are very similar to this. You've got Classic, which is going to deal X damage to each creature without flying. Play this one carefully because you're hurting yourself with it, but if you bring everyone down to the same level, you could potentially cast this for very large with a couple flyers left over. Bring everyone down, if you're at the same life level as some of your opponents, bring everyone down to like 5 or 10, depending on how much mana you generate, and then swing with a couple of your flyers who weren't killed with it to win the game right then and there. You got another card here called Subterranean Tremors. It deals X damage to each creature without flying. It's a red and an X, and if X is 4 or more, destroy all artifacts, and if X is 8 or more, put an 8 red lizard creature token on the battlefield. Also careful with this one because you're a Jeskai, probably going to be running some mana rocks here. But again, it's another one-sided board wipe potentially, and these one-sided board wipes can be very powerful when it comes to just maintaining your board. You know, everyone talks about Sea-Rift and how powerful that card is because it's one-sided. Well, now this is destroying not every permanent play, non-playing permanent, but this is definitely clearing the board. Most creatures your opponents control at its best. You could include more X-red spells in here if you'd like to, but those are the ones that are going to be working well with your board state because your board will have flying. So those are the only ones I'm going to talk about. You could also run Archetype of Imagination in this deck. Your creatures should all have flying, right? But this will also give them flying again and strip it from your opponents, making it so that you're the only one with flyers now, which will allow you to attack freely. While we're on the subject of attacking freely, I need to highlight a card that I don't understand why it's still so cheap. Last time I checked, it was around $8 to $10 for this card. It's called Reconnaissance. It's a 1 white mana, white enchantment, obviously, that says you may pay 0, remove target attacking creature you control from combat, and untap it. Now, the command zone has covered this card many times also. In fact, that is an activated ability on the enchantment. You swing in with your creatures. You can swing in with everything. Swing with all 5 of your creatures. Your opponent blocks 2 of them, 2 of your most important ones. You activate Reconnaissance after blockers have been declared to remove those from combat. Your other 3 will deal damage. And then at the end of combat, the cleanup step of combat, there is a time where you have a chance to activate abilities Captain or Priority of the Path. You can activate Reconnaissance after damage has been dealt to remove your creatures from combat and tap them. It's kind of a pseudo-vigilant that also allows you to attack with everything without fearing your creatures being blocked and killed. It's so powerful. And it's a 1 white mana enchantment that's going to trigger Kykar. It allows you to swing in, start dealing damage without losing your board. Very, very powerful card. I would recommend it in any white deck that's running creatures. I've got a couple other cards here. I'm not going to go for much longer. I'm going to start with Descent of the Dragons. 6 mana, destroy any number of target creatures. For each creature destroyed this way, its controller puts a 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying on the battlefield. It's kind of similar to Devout Invocation and Divine Visitation. It's a little weaker, but it could also destroy troublesome creatures that your opponents control. No one wants that Widower sticking around. I can't remember if he prevents even or odd spells. But any kind of large creature that just needs to go. Consecrated Sphinx, Grave Titan, anything that's just a problem. It'd be much better to have a 4/4 white or a 4/4 flyer to deal with. But you can also target your own creatures with this spell. Destroy 5 spirits that you weren't going to use for mana because you don't have any kind of X spell in your hand. Create that many 4/4 flying dragons. So it's just another way to amplify your tokens, create bigger creatures. You've got the Wind Reader Sphinx. This is a very high mana cost card. You could run it. You could avoid running it. Kykar lets you stack spirits for mana, so you can eventually get this out quicker than turn 7. 7 mana, whenever a creature with flying attacks, you may draw a card. That's a lot of card draw. With Reconnaissance, you just gotta attack, and if they've got blockers, pull them back after you're done, or after combat. It's a lot of card draw right there for 7 mana if you can get the chance to swing in on the same turn you cast it. Again, not necessary for the deck, but I've got another creature here, Serra Ascendant, 1 white for a 1/1 with lifelink. As long as you have 30 or more life, it's +5/+5 and has flying. This card, you don't need this card, but it's a very good card, especially early game. Allows you to start gaining life, and it's potentially a 6/6 flyer. Very strong card for 1 white. It's not going to trigger Kykar Kykar or anything, but it's good to have just little cards that work together by themselves to start getting you value. Dealing 6 damage and gaining 6 liquid burn is very powerful. I got one more card here. I've been searching for a deck that this card would fit into really well. A lot of people talked about it and were like, oh, it's not that great. It's okay. It's out of Modern Horizons. It's Sarah the Benevolent. 4 mana for a white planeswalker. Starts with 4 loyalty, +2 creatures you control flying, and +1/+1 until end of turn. +2 isn't overwhelming. It's a small anthem effect, but for 4 mana, it's not terrible. And she's got plenty of other abilities on her to make her versatile. -3 will bring her down to 1 loyalty right off the bat. Create 4/4 white angel creature token flying and vigilance. 4 mana is about what you paid for an angel in Magic, anyways, especially one without any grandiose abilities. That's pretty powerful. -6, you get an emblem with if you control a creature, damage that would reduce your life total to less than 1 reduces it to 1 instead. This is very powerful. It's very similar to a card called Worship. It's actually the exact same thing as a card called Worship, but it's in emblem form, which can never be removed. All you need to do is plus this planeswalker once, and then the next time you activate an ability on it, you'll be able to get that emblem. With Kykar, this is a creature deck. If you're playing lots of flyers, you should always have a creature, and it allows you to cast that Earthquake for as much mana as you freaking want, because when that Earthquake resolves, I think Worship, if I'm correct, now I might be wrong, I think that if this emblem is in play and you cast Earthquake, oh, no, wait, yeah, your creature's not flying. Duh. Yeah, you can cast it for as much as you want and kill everybody except yourself, because you should have flyers and survive, as long as your opponents don't have flyers.
Even then, if your opponents have flyers, doesn't Earthquake deal damage to each player as well?
It does, whereas as long as you have this emblem, you won't go below 1.
Right.
So you can play it for 30 and survive.
Exactly.
If you are only at 20 life.
I like it.
So, yeah, that's the last card on my list. It also happens to make a token. So just pay close attention to that, guys. Make sure you're running cards like Enlightened Tutor and Idyllic Tutor and any kind of enchantment search, because this deck with the flyers is going to have lots of enchantments that are important, and those tutors and enchantments will make you 1/1 flyers for Kykar to use. So that's my small take on it. There's many other avenues, but yeah, I was more interested in the flying side of things.
Well, there you have it. Our take on Kykar. Personally, I think Kykar is the most interesting and the strongest commander to come out of Core Set 20. I know that a lot of people are really excited for Yarok, the Sultai commander that basically pan-harmonicons. I like the idea of Yarok, but I think Kykar is a lot more solid to build around, and that's just my opinion. Anyway, thank you for watching. This is the Commander Crucible, and if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to like and comment on your take on Kykar. If you think he's the strongest commander of Core 20, or if you think Omnath is, Yarok, or the new Angel, Rian, anything. So, thank you for watching.
Also, if you have anything you'd like to say in the comments about how wrong we are, please feel free.
Oh yes, we love when people tell us how wrong we are. It definitely, you might feel a little bad when initially reading it, but adversity and controversy is definitely how you learn and grow. So feel free to tell us that we're idiots for not including some card, or that you would include something else.